let's take you live once more to Parliament, where that committee tasked to get into the different views on the LGBTQ bill has started sitting again.
Canvassed, then you can make reference to it and then move to a point that has not been canvassed, so that we can use the opportunity as much as possible to listen to everybody that has presented a memo before us. On this note, I thank Chairman for giving me the opportunity. So on this note, we want our guests to introduce themselves. It's a self-introduction. When they get to you, you mention your name, the group that you represent, and then we can start with the first group.
We can't hear you. Is there a microphone there?
My name is Mr. Adamu, representing the Commission of Muslim Organization.
My name is
I think the problem with the microphone. So if you wouldn't mind, I think if you are up, we can hear you better. So if you may, with the greater respect, even come forward to the microphone that is on, and then you can actually speak to the microphone. So shall we start again from our guest, please?
My name is Mr. Adamu Ayamba, representing COMOG, Coalition of Muslim Organizations.
Mine is Joseph Rita, the Commission.
My name is Moses Foreman for the National Coalition for Human Sexual Rights in Canada. My name is Sancha Dimana, I'm the president of the Coalition of Organizations.
Okay, thank you. The pressmen didn't introduce themselves, but I think we know you. You want to? If there's anybody left, please assist the person to introduce him or herself. Thank you.
Silent majority? DP service. Grading service of a legal process on this person.
Madam, I didn't hear a thing. I saw you stand, but I didn't hear anything. Officers, the mic, that particular mic is not working properly. Can you change the microphone for us?
I'm just a member of the coalition.
Which of the coalitions? With
As the committee continues with its hearing right after the break.
Thank you. Ima Bejra, one of the promoters of the bill. Thank you.
Honorable Ayaraga was here earlier, but he sought permission to step out. He will come back here. Now, I would want to now hear from the sponsors of the bill. The last time we were supposed to have heard from you, but the fault was ours. We didn't give you notice to prepare, so we'll give you the time today. So if you can take the chair, there's the person presenting. Yes, can take the chair facing me, and then introduce yourself and your group before you speak. You have 20 minutes, please.
Chairman, a very good morning to you and to members of the committee and members of the general public. My name is Samuel Nate George, Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, and one of the 8 sponsors of the bill on the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values bill 2021. I sit here representing the Honorable Emmanuel Kwesi Bejra, the Honorable Roxanne Nelson Dafia-Mekbo, Honorable Dela Soa, Honorable Alhassan Saibu Suhini, Honorable Rita Na Odole Soa, and the Honorable John Intim Fojo, and myself. And then the Honorable Reverend Helen Adra Ntoso. These 8 members of Parliament put together this bill. We've been asked to give a brief presentation on the object and principles of the bill. Mr. Chairman, the memorandum to the bill clearly spells out what the objects and principles of this bill are. It's a very lengthy memorandum. It explains itself. We believe that the object of this bill is to provide proper human sexual rights, or a framework, a legislative framework for proper human sexual rights, to also ensure that we have in a codified form of legislation what our Ghanaian family values are relative to sexual relations. We also intend, by the object of this bill, to proscribe LGBTQ+ and related activities in Ghana. We intend to proscribe the propaganda of, the advocacy for, and the promotion of LGBTQIAAP+ and related activities. The object of this bill is also to provide for the protection of and support for children and victims who are accused or who are caught as supporters of activities related to LGBTQIAAP+. The background to this bill is that in the last week of January this year, the media was awash, specifically on the 31st of January, awash with a lot of reportage on the opening of an advocacy office in Ghana for LGBTQIAAP+ activities. It was called an Advocacy Resource Center. There was public outrage and outcry, and on the 5th of March this year, the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament admitted a statement that was made in the name of the 8 members previously mentioned, where we stated our abhorrence for the opening of that office. We asked for the sanctioning of members of the diplomatic corps who were present at that function in contravention of Article 41 of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. And we asked for the immediate shut or close down of that office. It is, to the best of our understanding, that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs did engage post our statement, and we also saw national security step in to close down the resource center. The principles behind this bill are quite simple. We believe that LGBTQIAAP+ activities threaten the concept of family and the associated value system central to the social structure of all ethnic groups in Ghana.
We also believe that Ghana is part of the globalization that's happening, and we're not an island. However, globalization is meant to strengthen the values of the state and not to erode the values and identity of a state. And we cannot allow globalization or supposed presumed globalization to compromise the cultural and moral values therein in our country. The state's right to self-determination is one that is preemptory. It's a preemptory rule in international customary law, and that states reserve the right to make laws which protect their values and identity, insofar as they do not infringe on fundamental human rights. That's one thing we, as sponsors of this bill, recognize. The Constitution of Ghana, which is the supreme law of this country, spells out fundamental freedoms, starting from Articles 12 of the Constitution, Articles 17, and Articles 21. And we have had quite the pushback. However, these rights, we must state, are not absolute. These rights can be enjoyed within certain boundaries. In fact, no rights in the 1992 Constitution are absolute. Not even the right to life is absolute. There are bases in our 1992 Constitution for the curtailment of the enjoyment of every right that is established there. Those who cite Article 12.1 need to avert their mind to 12.2, and I read, Chairman, with your permission. Every person in Ghana, whether his race, place, or origin, political opinion, color, religion, creed, or gender, shall be entitled to the fundamental human rights and freedoms of the individual contained in this chapter, but subject to respect for the rights and freedoms of others and for the public interest. So those fundamental human rights are only enjoyable within the framework of a respect for the rights of others and for the public interest. Our position as sponsors of this bill is that sexual orientation is not a fundamental human right. It is not a fundamental human right given in the 1992 Constitution. It's not a fundamental right given in any of the international treaties that Ghana is a signatory to. I'll make copious reference to a few of these treaties that we have seen referred to largely. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights is a critical one for us. The United Nations has a Human Rights Charter. The European Union has a Human Rights Charter. But the African Union has a Human and People's Rights, because the African context is one that must be taken into perspective. Africa is a communal society. So your human rights, or your human right as a person, is contained within the context of the society. And, Mr. Chairman, if you read the articles in the African Charter, Article 2 talks about the discrimination of persons and the basis on which discrimination should not happen. I read, every individual shall be entitled to the enjoyment of the rights and freedoms recognized and guaranteed in the present charter, without distinction of any kind, such as, and then it goes out to list it, race, ethnic group, color, sex, language, religion, political, or any other opinion, national and social origin, fortune, birth, or other status. It does not list sexual orientation as a fundamental right. And when you read through this and go to Article 10 of the same charter, it says that every individual shall have the right to free association, provided, there's a proviso there, provided that he abides by the law. So your right to association is not absolute even under the charter. It is within a certain framework. Again, Article 11 of the charter says that you have the right to assembly freely with others. But this exercise of the right shall be subject only to necessary restrictions provided for by law, in particular those enacted in the interest of national security, the safety, health, ethics, and rights and freedoms of others, the African Charter. So when people quote the charters and tell us what is in there, it is mandatory that they also read it in its entirety. In 17, it actually talks about education and says that in 17.3, it says that the promotion and protection of morals and traditional values, recognized by the community, not by a foreign nation, not by an exogenous association, by the community. It says the promotion and protection of morals and traditional values recognized by the community shall be the duty of the state. So it is enjoined, it's imperative on the state to ensure that the morals, traditional values of Ghana are protected. And we have thrown an open challenge for anyone to show us one traditional area in Ghana whose traditions, ethics, and values or community supports homosexuality as a way of life. Again, in Article 18, it goes on to speak about the value of the family. It says the family shall be the natural unit and basis of society. And I'm taking my time to do this to let you understand the importance of the Ghanaian family values component of our bill. That the family shall be the natural unit and basis of society. It shall be protected by the state, shall be protected by the state, which shall take care of its physical health and moral. The state shall have the duty to assist the family, which is the custodian of moral and traditional values recognized by the community. The state shall ensure the elimination of every discrimination against women and also censure the protection of the rights of the woman and the child as stipulated in international declarations. So clearly you see from the African Charter that the family plays a critical role, and the family plays that role within the context of the community and what the community wants. You go to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 2 of that again says everyone is entitled to all rights and freedoms as set out in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as, again, it repeats the distinctions: race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth or other status. And after doing all of that, it is silent on sexual orientation, because sexual orientation is not a fundamental right. Again, Article 16 of that says that in 16.3, it says, in 16.2, men and women. Didn't say men and men or women and women. This is the UN's own Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Men and women of full age, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at dissolution. In 16.3, it says the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. What the sponsors of this bill are trying to do is to defend the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which has not been amended yet by any group or body or nation. But I know I do have about 10 minutes more, so. Okay. In Article 16 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, it goes on to talk again about marriage. And we're harping on marriage because there's been questions about why we are trying to void marriages. In fact, I would read to you from the Convention on Celebration and Recognition of the Validity of Marriages, signed in The Hague, concluded on the 14th March 1978. In that convention, Article 11 establishes the fact that a contracting state may refuse to recognize the validity of a marriage where at the time of the marriage, the spouses did not have mental capacity, one of the spouses did not fully consent. It tells you that the state has the power to either recognize a marriage or void that marriage or invalidate it. So if you have a marriage which is legal in another jurisdiction, when you enter within the jurisdictions of Ghana, if our laws void the kind of marriage you have, it is null and void here and of no consequence. Again, when you look at the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, it spells out copiously in Article 10 that the widest possible protection and assistance should be accorded to the family, which is the natural and fundamental group unit of society, particularly for its international conventions are clear. In none of these international conventions can anyone show you where there is a call for the respect of sexual orientation. In fact, what this say is that you must enjoy whatever rights you have within the context of public health, public safety, and the custom of the community you find yourself in. Thankfully, the CDD did a research, and that research is clear enough on the community of Ghana where we find ourselves and what our abhorrence or tolerance levels are for the activities of the LGBTQIAAP+. And Mr. Chairman, I restrict myself to only these alphabets. At the last check, there are 46 expressions. We have only 23 alphabets of the letter, but we have 46 expressions of sexuality, and counting. And so the question is, we may have to go into the Greek alphabet after we complete A to Z to even get letters to express them. In fact, some have started using numbers, 2S, to represent two spirits. And so, Mr. Chairman,
Honorable, you already started by saying QQ and then AA, so we could repeat it later.
So we need to repeat more, but we've exceeded the 26 alphabets. Mr. Chairman, it is important that this bill is to protect our kids. Recently, the headmistress of Ola Girls could take it no more. And she's not the only headmistress. Several heads of schools are complaining about persons actively forming clubs under the guise of civil society organizations and offering commissions to students to recruit other students into lesbianism and homosexuality. How can this be said to be another man and woman's child? How can this be allowed to go on in our country? And Mr. Chairman, let no one tell you that they pose no threat to society. Mr. Chairman, we have a video that we will play at the end of our submission. That video will let the public appreciate whether the homosexual cabal, the group that is active recruitment drive, or whether it is a new cultural movement, you would see from that video. But Mr. Chairman, I will end here so that we have time to play the video.
How many minutes is
It's 4 minutes. It's
okay.
4 minutes, and that's why I'm making my final comment.
3 minutes now.
So I'm making my final comment, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we are very confident that Ghana, and let me make this, Ghana is not a secular state. Ghana, people have made that statement and said Ghana is a secular state and we must allow it. Ghana is a pluralistically religious state. A state that at every function, and Chairman, today, before you, is a complete dissolution between the state and religion, like France. You either ask for a Christian prayer, you ask for a Muslim prayer, or you ask for a traditional prayer. Your national anthem is a prayer that starts with a prayer to God. God bless our homeland, Ghana. We are not a secular state that respects God and has his place in our nationalhood. So no one should call us a secular state. Mr. Chairman, we'll play our video here and hope that this video awakens the sleeping conscience of our nation. I thank you. And if the lights could be turned off so people, and can we get good sound? It's a song by the gay community that tells the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir, that tells you what their modus operandi is. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we have volume, please?
It's alright.
Can you please restart it? The words he said at the beginning are very important.
You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco, warn about San Francisco, make them wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children, we'll make them tolerant and fair.
At first I didn't get why you'd be so scared of us turning your children into accepting, caring people, but I see now why you have a problem with that.
Just like you worried, they'll change their group of friends. You won't when they start finding things online that you've kept
children, yes we will. Reaching one and all, there's really no escaping it. Cause even grandma likes RuPaul. And the world's getting kinder. Gen Z's gayer than Grindr. Learn to love, learn to vogue, face your fate. We'll convert your children. Someone's gotta teach them not to hate. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. Your children will care about fairness and justice for others. Your children will work to convert all their sisters and brothers. Then soon we're almost certain your kids will start converting you. The gay agenda is coming home. The gay agenda is here. But you don't have to worry, you don't have to worry. There's nothing wrong with standing by our side. Get on board and get on board, because the world always needs a bit more pride. No, you don't have to worry. There's nothing wrong with standing by your side. Get on board and they will turn to you. Getting all the fear inside is free like you never knew. Go and see San Francisco. Go and turn up that disco. You'll forget you were ever.
I tried to follow the lyrics, but I couldn't hear most of the thing. Now, I would want honorable members, if you have any questions for the technician.
This one is working.
Oh, honorable members, if you have some questions, please.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Yes, sir. Honorable Mesa.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I just wanted your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. That song clearly shows you the agenda of the LGBTQ community, and it clearly tells you what the agenda is. You said you didn't hear the words. They said, we will convert your children. We will change. We are coming after your children. We will change them, and there is nothing you can do about it. They said, little by little, we will convert them, and you will not be able to stop it. That is what the song said. So the agenda, when people tell you that it is about two consenting adults in their room, what have your children got to do with what two consenting? To corrupt your children against your will, against what the international conventions I've read here say. They say that the right to your child's education is dependent on your parent. You as the parent, you have the right to determine what your child is taught.
Any other question? But the explanation you give, what shows that is coming from the gay community?
Mr. Chairman, the song is by the San Francisco Gay
Committee.
Yes.
How are we supposed to know that it is from the gay community and that these are their intentions? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
This video is on their official Instagram page, is on their official website. I pulled it off their official website, and we can assist the Secretariat to access their official pages to see this video, and even more, that exit community in San Francisco. And so, Mr. Chairman, we know that this is a committee of parliament. We will not come here with false information.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Honorable Sub-George and the other members who are sponsors of the bill, you have in your submission alluded to the fact that something an office in this country to promote their activities. And following upon the opening of that office, you then started advocating for action to be taken against the community. Now you also gave indication that at the end of it all, that office was have made reference to Section 104 of Act 29, which in your own words is the most proximate reference to LGBTQI, whatever. Now, my question is, acted clearly in accordance with Article 11 of our Constitution, which lists the laws of Ghana, including the common law of Ghana, which is explained to include our customary laws, and you have activities. Don't you think the Constitution plus Section 104 of Act 29 has already done the job you are seeking to do? In respect of the Criminal and Other Offences Act, there is some criminalization angle to the whole matter. Then you have the Constitution.
I'm very grateful, Honorable Chair. Act 29, Section 104, deals with unnatural carnal knowledge. And if you look at the definition of carnal knowledge in Banusin versus the...
Can you hold on, please? I would want us to take some 3 questions and then you answer them all. Honorable Pankroma, welcome.
Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. I have 2 questions for the proponents of the bill. The first comes from commentary, public commentary, that aligns very much with what my good friend on the other side has just mentioned, that this bill is the Ghanaian society in a manner that is adverse to Ghanaian culture, and that if the proponents of this agenda were to let sleeping dogs lie, there will be no need to push further with this legislation. It's one of the views that I have come upon in my research prior to this meeting, and I want to see if the proponents will be willing to make a comment on that in this particular enterprise. That's one of the views, and I would like to have a comment. Chairman, my final question is, the very first object of the bill from the memorandum is to provide for proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values. There's an emerging proposal that this bill should be amended to include adultery, which will be against proper family values, and that it should be expanded to include the full breadth of these activities. Again, I'd like to know what the proponents of the bill think of that. Thank you. You want to add?
Please note the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your memorandum indicates that Article 39 of the Constitution to the fabric of national life and prescribes the mode by which the state shall do so through formal and informal education and the conscious introduction of cultural dimensions to relevant aspects of national planning. That's what Article 39(1) says, and the mode by which it prescribes that the state takes measures to encourage integration of appropriate customary values, citing that as a rationale for the passage of this bill. Secondly, I see that the definition of Ghanaian family values could be problematic if we were to pass this bill in the form in which it is and seek to enforce it. It includes respect for the sanctity of marriage as a lifelong relationship between a man and a woman, each of whose gender is assigned at birth. Lifelong relationship described under this bill. And so I've made the argument that slave queens, be careful. Sugar mummies and daddies, stand still, because you could be the unintended victims of this bill as we seek to encourage and promote respect for the sanctity of marriage as a lifelong relationship between a man and a woman. It also talks about the duty to uphold the cherished societal ideals of selflessness, communalism, good neighborliness, hard work, discipline, truthfulness, compassion towards the weak and vulnerable, acquisition of wealth. How would you punish a lazy person under the auspices of this bill because it is not one of the cherished societal ideals? I'm a bad neighbor. Hey, I don't like people. Should I be thrown into jail for 2 to 4 months because I'm a bad neighbor? Truthfulness, that will catch almost everybody under the ambit, because most of us are prone to tell lies, white, black, green, blue, whichever form you take at the sexual aspects of it. But the promotion of Ghanaian sexual values aspect of it, the definitions are way too broad, too encompassing, and can rope in people that we don't intend into their net. And so what do you make of the definitions that you've prescribed in there? And intersex to be included as one of the crimes that that the bill envisages. Someone who is born that way. There may be only 1 or 2% of people who fall under characteristics at birth. Why are they to be criminalized for being born that way? Because they are intersex. And they are clear, even your definition of intersex is also problematic. It includes anyone who has a biological anomaly, including a person who is intersex. Biological anomaly. Okay, I'm born with one hand shorter than the other. That's a biological anomaly. I fall within the ambit of this definition. Duty of this committee to look at the wording of this bill and propose corrective measures. Thank you.
Right. Chairman, if we could take this has been quite extensive. No. There are quite a number of others, so if you could let us, we've had about 6 questions so that we can address them adequately.
I thought you had a pen and paper.
Yeah, we do, but we don't want to take too many questions so that we can answer them. These are plea to you.
Okay, we'll take this round of questions. Honorable Avoka, please hold on. And then the Deputy Ranking also has a question.
So the Honorable Agalga on the sufficiency of, and the Honorable Kojo Nkrumah as well, on the sufficiency of common law vis-a-vis Act 29 to Section 104 of Act 29 to deal with the issues of LGBTQI, AAP plus, and the growing the alphabet people. Mr. Chairman, the common law exists, and our chieftaincy and traditions frown on armed robbery. They frown on fraud, but they frown on violent conduct. Yet Parliament found wealth using cyber crime. The Minister for Communications is here. She set up a cyber crime law. You get it? So those are things which our customary law frown upon. But for the purposes of dealing adequately in law with these offenses, you pass specific legislation to deal with them. Act 29 is over 60 years old. At the time Act 29 was passed into law in 1960, you realize that at that time, the intent of the law was to criminalize homosexuality. What we knew as homosexuality at that time was gayism. And so the wording is specific. And on the basis of that, you can no longer use Section 104 to actually adequately prosecute anyone who is transgender, anyone who is queer, anyone who is lesbian, because it talked about penetrative sex. So that is why you need to have specific legislation like this one to deal with the growing...
I know you've done a thorough research on the Section 104 of the Criminal Offences Act. There is the law, the existing law talks about the fact that you cannot be a homosexual, and the Supreme Court had gone ahead of that one. We would look into whether there is penetration or not. But don't you think that if this bill is passed in this present form, it would be a duplication of laws, because you do not amend?
Someone wants to add a few points.
Yet, not at all, Chairman. I can give you a litany of provisions in related enactment of Parliament that deals with corruption and corruption-related activities.
Honorable, what is before me, we are talking about unnatural carnality in the criminal. If this bill is passed in its present form.
Chairman, with all due respect, that is why I'm saying that will not be the case, because this House found it prudent to enact similar provisions in related enactments governing a certain conduct that has been criminalized.
So you restrict yourself to what is before me and leave
Chairman, with
what
all
is
due
not
respect,
before me.
Chairman, with all due respect, I've asked me a question here. Yes, I'm giving you an instance or instances where this House, this Parliament, enacted provisions that are similar in nature in several other enactments. Is that the passage of this bill into law will actually become the parent act on conduct relating to this matter. For instance, it is not criminalized when a person goes to a school, forms a club to recruit people to propagate matters of homosexuality. It is not. But this bill is seeking to criminalize the Constitution. And with your permission, if I may read that under Article 295. A public interest includes any right or advantage which inures or is intended to inure to the benefit generally of the whole of the people of Ghana. So, Chairman, clearly what we are saying is that there is an inadequacy. There's an inadequacy contained. What we are further saying is that even though you have a right to form an association as prescribed in the Constitution, you don't have the right to form a criminal association. So this bill will address that. Further, the question has been asked whether or not we will be amenable to adding things like adultery and all that. Adultery is already provided under our Matrimonial Causes Act, Section 2, thereabout. Comes to the determination that you want to criminalize adultery, it is the right of the proponent to propose it. And when this House will adopt it, that is fine. But our bill is not addressing adultery. That is not the focus of this bill, and nobody should pollute the focus of this bill with adultery. Or fornication.
And Chairman, just to add to it, Chairman, you are a senior at the bar. I mean, I would be grateful if you could show me how Section 104 of Act 29 would deal with a case involving transgenders, for example. I would be grateful.
I can ask you a question.
I'm not asking a question. I'm asking for assistance. But Chairman, guidance on the issue of adultery and fornication again that was raised. This bill has a focus and an object. And the object is to deal with what we have stated.
Just a minute. That was a thought that came from Honorable Obonko, yes, that people are suggesting or proposing that this bill should be expanded to include that. Would you want to consider that? Yes.
Chairman, there are 275 MPs in Parliament. 8 of us have chosen to do this. It means that there's still 267 that could do. The Honourable Eslawusu could pick up a private member's bill on adultery and fornication. But let's be clear here. I have not come across a press of fornicators who have formed a group and are asking for society to recognize their rights to adultery. So you cannot.
So you will not consider that. Move on to the next question.
I'm saying to you that they are apples and oranges. Yes.
It's clear. Move on to the next.
The punitive legislation, which is not consonant with Article 39, that was asked by the Honourable Member for Ablekoma West. When you read 39(1), it says, subject to clause 2 of this article, the state shall take steps to encourage the integration of appropriate customary values into the fabric of national life through formal and informal education, and the conscious introduction of cultural dimensions to relevant aspects of national planning. Our national planning takes into consideration all the legislation of Parliament. The NDPC, in putting together our national plan, does that in consonance with all legislation that has been passed, all acts of Parliament and the Constitution. That's what forms our national plan. So if you pass a legislation that is going to curb a public menace, a menace to public health, public morals, it would assist the NDPC in putting together the national plans. And so, yes, this law is actually consistent. This bill that we are proposing is actually consistent with helping us in national planning. You need to plan for the threats that we just played to you that said that they are coming for your children and your children's children. So it's important that you have articles or legislation that would deal specifically with it. Again, when it comes to the question she asked about definition of marriage, the definition of marriage as a lifelong relationship, and then she also spoke about punishing of lazy persons for the various things that we cited. I would want to plead with the honourable member to read the bill properly. In the bill, the only things that are criminal are spelled out in section 6 or clause 6 of the bill. In there, I do not see how a dissolution of marriage has been criminalized by this bill. So that is an importation into our bill that doesn't exist. Because if you look at if you read clause 6 of the bill, it states what are the offenses that are being criminalized by this bill. I don't see divorce as one of them. And so it will be an unfortunate importation into our bill. It is not what the bill says. Again, when you talk about the Ghanaian values that are espoused and defined in clause 2 of the bill, when you come to criminalization, what is criminal? Again, I don't see how those values have, or lack of those values, have been criminalized here. The bill is specific on what it criminalizes. So let's not begin the importation of extraneous matters to pollute the sanctity of the bill. Again, the honourable member makes a specific claim that we are criminalizing intersex. Mr. Chairman, that again is false, is unfortunate, and I would want to use this opportunity to educate the honourable member that our bill does not criminalize intersex. In fact, Mr. Chairman, for the avoidance of any doubt, let me read what our bill criminalizes in section 6 or clause 6. A person commits an offence if the person A engages in I, sexual intercourse between or among persons of the same sex. II, sexual intercourse between a man and an animal or a woman and an animal, or III, pansexual activity. B, marries or purports to marry a person who is of the same sex as that person. C, knowingly marries or purports to marry a person who has undergone gender...
Honourable Sam George, I think we'll get to a stage where the committee will engage the sponsors and will do clause by clause consideration of this particular
I respect that, Ranking. I was just doing this for the benefit of the public.
Let me finish, please.
Sorry.
Please. So the provisions that you are reading, we'll get to that particular stage. You read the provisions and be in tandem with the committee. Then we can make appropriate proposals to the floor. So at this particular stage, I think you are done.
Chairman, I thank you, but Chairman, Ranking and Chairman, just because a specific, yes, I'm concluding, a specific claim was made that this bill criminalizes intersex, and that's why I'm saying that is wrong, it's false, and it must be rejected robustly. Again,
so that's why I'm telling you that the specifics that we are reading, we will do clause by clause.
I won't read again, Chairman.
And it is at that stage that the committee will consider whether the act criminalized, whether it is right or it is not right. And then the appropriate proposals will be made for the consideration of the entire plenary
for the House. Chairman. I was just using this opportunity.
So we'll look at those things.
I hear you.
We'll look at those things.
I rest. Just to make the point that, again, intersex was described, it was attributed to us as sponsors, that intersex was defined as a biological anomaly, including deformities, and they said length of hand. Let me read from the bill. Intersex means an individual whose sexual anatomy or chromosomes do not fit the traditional markers of male or female.
Honorable Sam George,
I'm
the ranking member had given you a clue.
I rest.
Now, the honorable member says that you've made an allusion to her. She wants to
Chairman, one more point before the honorable member will come in. A question from the honorable information minister is not answered. He asked whether or not will not allow sleeping dogs to lie if those people also desist from their conduct. Law is a tool for social engineering and development. Once we smell that there are attempts to pollute our children with such immoral conduct, it is the duty of the state to enact legislation to govern such activities so that tomorrow persons who are minded to engage in it will face the full rigors of the law. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Clause 1C of the bill states clearly, this act applies to a person, C, who has a biological anomaly, including a person who is intersex. So I am not mistaken about the application of the bill as it's stated. Please let me finish. It's important. He has stated clearly that I have not read the bill or I do not understand the import of the bill. I want to demonstrate to him right here and now and in full view of the whole public that I have taken pains to read the bill.
Just
Clause 1C refers to a person who has a biological anomaly, including a person who is intersex, as one whom the bill applies to. Clause 4 of the bill states clearly that a person shall not undermine the proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values specified in Section 2 of this Act. A person who contravenes paragraphs A or B of subsection 1 commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of not less than 1,000 penalty units and not more than 2,000 penalty units, or a term of imprisonment not less than 2 months and not more than 4 months. Lying, adultery, fornication, being lazy are all criminalized under Clause 4 of the bill under consideration. Thank you,
Chairman, as sponsors of the bill, we take strong exception to this. You know, this is our colleague member. We cannot have her. You said you stopped me from reading the bill. You sat down and watched her read the bill and twist it.
Sam George,
she cannot continue to twist it. No, Chairman, we deserve equity. What the member is doing, she's a lawyer. A bill, the fact that a bill applies to you does not mean it has criminalized you. If she has taken her law classes seriously, she would realize.
Honorable Sam George, please hold on. Honorable Sam George, what this public hearing is seeking to do is to make sure that we make the best law for the nation. At this juncture, we would ask, the committee members would ask questions for your consideration. Whether you want to subtract something or add something is entirely your discretion. But whatever be the case, we shall get to the clause by clause consideration. So I think at this time we'll move on from this point, and then we'll take the second round of questions for clarification.
Chairman, respectfully, out of respect for the chair, I retract and withdraw the last comments I made about the honourable member about taking her law seriously. I retract and withdraw that.
I'm grateful.
I'm over 30 years.
Right, Honourable Avoka.
It's all right. Oh, we beg you. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, please, I'm on the floor.
Honourable, go ahead.
Thank you. Chairman, two observations. I have two observations to the sponsors of the bill. And the first one is this, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, my first observation is this. The bill, the title of the bill, it's about the title of the bill, is Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values. Promotion. I am wondering whether it would not have been more appropriate for the title of the bill to be either prohibition or prevention of improper human sexual acts in Ghana. Prohibition or promotion of improper sexual acts in Ghana. The intent of this bill is to prevent something. It to prevent or criminalize or prohibit an act, a sexual act, that runs contrary to the values of this country. What has that got to do with promotion of proper human sexual rights? The bill does not indicate anywhere what activities constitute proper human sexual values. I'm wondering whether, if we have to talk about promotion of proper human sexual rights, we may have to go into people's bedrooms to tell them what they are supposed to do, how they are supposed to go about it. So with the greatest respect, I think that we want to prevent an act that we think sins against our tradition and our values and the rest of them. It's prevention, it's prohibition, rather than promotion of sexual values. We are not promoting proper sexual values in this bill. We are trying to prevent lesbianism and then gay rights and whatnot and whatnot. We are preventing them. We are not promoting anything. So that is an area that they may have to look at. My second observation, I made it the other day that we had the opening ceremony, the first sitting. And rightly, this is the group that we should be tackling because they are the sponsors of the bill. I said that against the background of the legal reforms that we have been having in the country against custodial sentences. And this type of offense, sexual offense that we are talking about, it's not prudent that we put them in the public domain and shame them and disgrace them, not to discourage only them, but those who want to join them in that act. Make them sweep the streets, sweep the gutters, and do other community services so that people will see them rather than fine them and imprison them. Mr. Chairman, you will recall that even with the drug barons, if you find them, they will easily, it's a syndicate. They will easily get money to pay the fine. It's a syndicate. If you imprison, you want to find a gay man, they will easily pay that money off. It is 1 million Ghana cedis, because it is a syndicate. But let him go to the street for the next 3 months or 6 months, or in my village street, and then they'll say that, oh, this man or this woman is this and that. Sweep the gutters and do community work and the rest of them. You see that within 1 year, everybody has gone underground. So that's the area that I thought that we should be looking at.
So now, remember, on condition that when they put them out to sweep, they will not be lynched. That's another thing. But these are things that we need to consider at the clause-by-clause stage. So please don't comment on it. But it's just a consideration. It's a food for thought. Honorable Sosu.
Chairman, regarding the second observation, a man who pays millions to have his sexuality and gender surgically changed is not a man accustomed to shame. Shame won't serve that purpose.
Honorable Roxon, you are a member of this particular committee, and you would agree with me that there are several instances where a bill is introduced into the House, referred to the committee, And then a lot of things will change about the bill, even including the title of the bill. That is why it is important for this committee to do a clause-by-clause consideration of the bill. Fortunately, when the committee is doing clause-by-clause consideration of the bill, the sponsors of the bill at all material time will be at the committee meeting. So let's leave matters which are for the consideration the consideration of the bill clause by clause for now, so that when we get to that particular stage, we can cross the bridge. For instance, the punishment that we are even talking about, we have, in order not to put the prosecutors into an election, we have to look at the sanction regime by the existing law and the one that is being proposed. Then we can reconcile the two. So at this stage, we are not looking at the clause-by-clause consideration.
Chairman, we are amenable. We are amenable to changes, even to the title of the bill. Can we proceed?
I'm pleading with the honorable members that if there is any issue regarding a proposed amendment to the bill, it doesn't lie in the mouth of the sponsors to say, don't bring the proposed amendment, or you should bring the proposed amendment. That one, let's leave it for the consideration of the committee as well as the entire House.
Chairman, we are amenable and we are grateful for your advice.
Yes, and I'm grateful. That makes the work of the committee easier. Okay, Honorable Sosum.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I first want to commend the bold spirit of the proponent of this bill to make this attempt, and also to assure them that as a committee, our role really is to make sure that the eventual outcome of this bill would be something that would sit not only in the aspirations of Ghanaians, but will also last, the test of time. So it must stand the test of time, and it is part of the reasons why this engagement, so that the eventual outcome of the bill will really fulfill the aspiration of Ghanaians. Now, having been part of the Justice for All program for many, many years, sometimes when you go to the prisons and you saw remand prisoners and you see people on prison, one of the biggest challenge we've had, or you hear when you go to those prisons, is a problem of sodomy, actually, particularly because of how our prisons are. And I'm bringing this as a way of consideration by the proponent. I know we will get there. I know that Rankin has said that when we get to the clause by clause, there will be many things that we can consider. But would you consider the issues of both the custodial sentences regime that has currently been proposed, and consider a potential, amendment of that when we get to the consideration level? Then the second issue I want to raise is, what will be your response to those who have said that the proposal currently violates Article 17(2) of the Constitution, particularly with respect to issues of gender? Because the definition of gender, unfortunately, the Constitution has not given us a clear definition of what gender is. But if you look at the experts and what they say about gender, it gives a kind of a broader definition. So I don't know what would be your response to such concerns.
Thank you very much, Chairman. On the
Please hold on. Honorable Habib, the Majority Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm just going to draw his attention to something, because I think I've been guided by your reaction to many of the clauses in the bill. Section 6.3, particularly A and B. Chairman, with your permission, he said, for purposes of this section, sexual intercourse occur where A person penetrates the anus, or a person penetrates the mouth of another person with the penis of that person, or other contraptions. And then the B, a person by use of any object or contraptions penetrate or stimulate the vagina or anus of another person. So I'm just drawing your attention especially to a person penetrates the mouth of another person. Relatively. I know you are a very young man and active, so you understand. And then and then the other part is that Chair, the other part is the what my
please let's listen to Honorable Habib. It's an advice for them to consider.
Chair, and then the last question, I think my senior colleague, Honorable Avoga, have drawn your attention to the heading itself, promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values. I do appreciate the fact that you are actually available for amendment of the title, because promotion of proper sexual human rights and family value. In other part of Ghana, you could see that other tribes, if your father is married to 2 wives and your father died, you can marry your stepmother. I don't think it is a family value that is widely accepted, or the fact that you might marry your wife's sister too. That one too is something, or people agreeing to marry more than four and other things. So I think if the title could properly be looked at. And promotion, you are promoting what? It means that I think the promotion will even give more information that we are promoting the LGBTQ rather than prohibiting it, like rightly said by our senior colleague. Thank you, Chair.
Chair. Honorable, I think all the issues that came is for your consideration. And for instance, Honorable Soso is proposing that prisons are choked. Would you consider a non-custodial sentence for the people that are alleged to be committing? And Honorable Abuka also said the same thing. So,
Chairman, we are
please consider it when we get to the clause by clause.
We are in the hands of the committee, and we assure you that we are amenable to any changes that will make the bill achieve its objective.
That's why we are here. Thank you very much. So I think you are discharged now. Or you want to... You have some concluding remarks?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, on behalf of my other colleagues, we want to thank you for giving this opportunity to explain the bill to you. We are also ready anytime at all you call on us to continue with the clause by clause. Just to add that this bill is not to legislate or criminalize sin. I want it to be clear. We are not criminalizing sin. We are criminalizing an act that affronts our culture, and that is what the proponents tend to do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Chairman, thank you for lending me your constitution. I'm grateful.
Sam George, approach a bunch of my constitution. Okay, the next we have to hear is the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, please. Please come forward, introduce yourself and your team, and then make your presentation.